That year at the palace banquet, I took the poisoned wine meant for the crown prince and went blind in both eyes. He held me and swore he would never betray me in this life. Later he ascended the throne, made me empress, yet gave his true heart to my legitimate younger sister. My sister found me an eyesore. For 3 years she whispered sedition into his ear and then framed me for killing his 2 children. He believed her without a thorough investigation. On the day I was given the poisoned wine, he pressed my shoulder with his own hand. Don't blame me, blame yourself for becoming a murderous woman. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the palace feast, looking at that cup of poisoned wine. I smiled, stepped aside, and joined the crowd in jeering. His Highness has quite the capacity for wine. Li Chenghan's fingers, reaching for the cup, halted suddenly, then withdrew. He turned and picked up a teacup instead, raising it to those making toasts. I am unwell today, I shall take tea in place of wine. My eyelids twitched ever so slightly. His gaze passed over the crowd and landed on my face. From that single look I knew he had returned too. Just now, that thought was like a bucket of ice water poured over my head, chilling to the bone the scant hope I'd scraped together since being reborn. The banquet continued, the music loud, dancers fluttering like butterflies, my fingers clenched inside my sleeve. Memories of my past life spun through my mind like a lantern on a carousel. 2 years in the Eastern Palace, we were once in harmony, but after he took the throne and brought my legitimate sister into the palace, he grew colder toward me day by day, his eyes as if looking at an inconvenient old thing. For the following 3 years I did not win so much as a shred of trust. In the palace infighting, he lost his 2 children yet listened only to slander, forcing the blame onto me. This time, I would not repeat the same mistake. My chest churned with boiling emotion, but I forced it down. My gaze swept the hall and finally rested on the Princess Li Chengyuan. She reclined by the table in a crimson-purple brocade skirt, twirling a cup in her hand. Though she and the crown prince were siblings, they had always been at odds, each coveting the throne. If anyone in the hall could challenge the crown prince, it would be her. I took a deep breath, lifted my cup, and rose. Just as I reached the princess's side and before I could speak, a voice called from behind. Owen. It was Li Chenghan, calling my pet name. I did not turn, but bowed to the princess. Your Highness looks particularly beautiful today. This servant dares to offer you a cup. The princess arched an eyebrow and was about to raise her cup when Li Chenghan came to my side. It's windy today. And you're frail. Why are you dressed so lightly? He adjusted my cloak for me, the motion entirely natural. I stepped back half a pace and lowered my eyes. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. I am not cold. He seemed not to hear and continued. Owen, I nearly forgot, your eyes are truly beautiful. My whole body stiffened. Was he warning me? In my past life, fearing he would drink too much, I stepped forward to shield him from the wine, only to accidentally drink that poisoned cup myself. This life I had no such impulse. He must have realized I had been reborn as well. With his mind, he would immediately infer what my closeness to the princess meant. Bringing up my eyes now was clearly a warning, yet we had both returned to seize the initiative. Who would prevail was still uncertain. Before I could answer, he spoke again. Father asked about choosing a consort yesterday, and I haven't decided yet. Owen, what do you think? I lifted my head to meet his dark, deep eyes and felt a momentary confusion. Since that position could never be mine again, what business was it of mine? The princess smirked like a spectator. Brother, the choosing of a consort is a matter of state. Why ask a maiden not yet married? Li Chenghan ignored her and kept looking at me. I replied with proper deference. Your Highness is right. You flatter this servant. Such a matter is not for me to presume upon. With that I bowed to the princess and withdrew. The day after the palace banquet, the crown prince personally came to the Minister of Personnel's residence to propose. In my previous life he came at this moment too. The procession shocked the whole capital. 300 men carried the betrothal gifts, from the Eastern Palace all the way to the Shen residence gate. He wanted everyone in the world to know that Li Chenghan repays kindness. Minister Shen's legitimate daughter Shen Ingwan had injured his eye, so he would reward her with the position of principal consort, for dignity's sake. This life, no one touched that poisoned wine. so he needn't repay any kindness. The one he married would naturally be the beloved of his heart, my legitimate younger sister Shin Ingsho. The whole household had gone to the front hall to pay respects, and I saw the trunks and chests arranged in the hall, not as ostentatious as before, but extremely thoughtful. Dozens of golden Nanmu wooden chests stood open, all filled with the things my younger sister loved: a mutton fat jade begonia paired pendant, a solid gold exquisite forehead ornament, a secret color porcelain ink slab, a Tianshan snow velvet cloak, and an entire chest of Qingming glow pearls. Looking at those pearls emitting pure fused light and a faint fragrance, my eyes burned. I had thought I was already numb and would no longer grieve for the past, yet my chest was still clogged with countless grievances and wistfulness, heavy and inescapable. In my past life, my bedchamber had been filled with these pearls. Li Chenghan had spent vast sums sending men to the bitter cold in the far north to extract them from millennial ice marrow. One pearl was worth as much as a city. He nearly exhausted his private fortune. Even when his most favored legitimate sister asked for one, he would not relent. He said, "Sho, stop it. Your sister is pitiable. She can only rely on these pearls to see." Indeed, the Qingming glow pearls allowed me to barely make out some outlines with my eyes. By that faint light I saw his face clearly, and I saw clearly the poisoned wine he handed me. RWN. My mother's soft call pulled me back from my sorrowful memories. Only then did I realize I had stared at that chest of pearls for too long. Everyone in the hall was watching me, their gazes mixed with worry and pity. Everyone knew I had always been close to the crown prince. Everyone assumed the one entering the Eastern Palace would be me. Sister, Shin Ingsho came over and gently took my hand. Her voice was light and soft, as if truly afraid of hurting me. Your younger sister knows you are hurting. Father and mother are too. For such a big matter, why not let sister know first? She sighed and timidly looked at Li Chenghen. Your Highness, my sister and I have been close since childhood. I don't mind serving your Highness together with her. If your Highness grants it, I'll try to persuade sister. Persuade what? Persuade me to become a concubine. I suddenly found it laughable. Last life she knelt before me and said, "Sister is the empress. I will always be the younger sister. I would never dare to usurp." But that so-called never dare to usurp was only asking for my one life. Your Highness, she tugged at Li Chenghan's sleeve and shook it. Will your Highness consent? Li Chenghan raised his hand and lightly brushed her nose. I won't. Do you like pushing me onto others so much? Aren't you afraid I'll punish you? The affection in his tone was unmistakable. Even Shin Ingsho herself was a little stunned, then gleefully stuck out her tongue at me and apologized in a warm voice. Sister, I'm sorry. Li Chenghan also looked toward me, carrying an invisible pressure. I lowered my eyes to avoid his gaze, walked to the chests, and let my fingertips lightly sweep over the Qingming glow pearls. The touch was icy, just as before. Before, she hadn't gotten a single one. Now he did everything he could to make amends. No wonder people say, love often feels like a continuing debt. My sister is so fortunate. I smiled, my voice calm. Your Highness has been very thoughtful. It so happened that my sister's eyes were about to fail. This would come in handy. 3. In my previous life I was poisoned for 5 years, and I also suffered through 5 years of treatment. Later my understanding of that poison probably surpassed even that of the person who administered it. The imperial physicians were helpless. Li Chenghan invited famous doctors from all over, even asking people to seek out several reclusive masters of medicine in the mountains. They took turns feeling my pulse, testing medicines, performing acupuncture and fumigations. They exhausted all methods, but the results were slight. The senior female physician once told me, this poison that afflicts your Highness is cunning not in its ferocity but in its persistence. It does not take a life at once, yet it will bit by bit eat away at the foundations. I have matched the original poison and can prepare an antidote. Only then did I learn that this poison could not only blind a person, but also render them incapable of bearing heirs, hollowing out the body reborn in this life. The first thing I did was copy out the original poison's recipe. The names of the ingredients, the quantities, the methods of preparation were already burned into my mind. I even knew the poison's nature better than anyone. If one wanted it to act slowly, the best way was to mix it into a salve, to have it touch the skin daily and seep through the pores into the bloodstream. Lip balm was the perfect vehicle. A few days before the court banquet, I did not leave the house. I locked myself in my room and made lip balm by hand all day. I mixed the poison powder into fine beeswax and floral essences, making 6 jars in total, each exquisite and delicate. When they were finished, I neatly arranged them in my cosmetic chest, waiting for Shiningsho to come asking for them. She had always liked my things. Sure enough, the moment she entered my room, her eyes stuck to the makeup box. I laughed and pulled her closer, opening each tin for her to smell. This one, Osman thus, is the most moisturizing. This peach blossom one flatters the complexion most. This rose, I paused, then handed her the bright crimson tin. This one lasts the longest, applies and stays all day without fading. She couldn't put it down and immediately said, "Sister, with your skill you can make more later, just give these to me." I pretended to hesitate before agreeing. She left happily carrying the box and used it every day. On the night before the palace banquet, the signs appeared. She was upset at not getting a seat at the banquet and sulked, begging Mother for the tea house storefront from her dowry. Mother refused. "No, it's already promised to your sister." She then looked at me. That tea house was in a good location and, under my management, had been profitable. She had long coveted it. I interjected at the right moment, "If my sister wants it, let her have it. But in future you mustn't be so playful, you must take more care of the shop." "Does sister really want to give it to me?" she asked, half in doubt. I nodded. "We're all family here, there's no need to separate yours from mine. Autumn dryness has set in lately. I was just planning to have the tea house try some new blends. Why don't you start from there, little sister?" That newly crafted floral tea was blended by me personally, and it happens to amplify the properties of this poison. She was the one who provoked me first. She can't blame anyone else. Wonderful, wonderful. The great joy dispelled her grievance at being unable to attend the palace banquet. She turned to her mother and said, "Mother, you don't know, my eyes have been a bit dry these past 2 days, and everything feels a strain to look at. Perhaps it's the autumn dryness causing heat. It's perfect to try this tea to clear the heat." Only then did her mother nod and look at me approvingly. I also lifted the corners of my mouth slightly and nodded gently. In this lifetime, Li Chenghan married her 2 years earlier than in the previous one. Therefore, if she falls ill again after entering the Eastern Palace, it will be the Imperial Medical Bureau's affair, the Eastern Palace's affair, the Crown Prince's affair. It won't implicate the Ministry of Revenue, and it has nothing to do with me. I just didn't expect that what Li Chenghan gave her was merely the position of a side consort. Before he left, he said to my father, "As for the position of primary consort, I still need to consider it." When he finished speaking, his gaze deliberately, or perhaps unconsciously, swept over me. Shiningsho's face went pale for a moment. She stared at the two of us nervously. As Li Chenghan passed by me, he said in a voice only I could hear, "Shiningwan, don't forget, you still owe me a life." He was talking about the children he had with consort Yarrow in his previous life. I died once, and it only paid for the life of one of his children. As for the other child's debt, he still wants to settle it with me. To protect myself, I went to the Princess Royal's residence and presented the poison recipe. She took one look and dismissed everyone around her. "What do you mean by this?" I straightened my back even more. "What your highness couldn't accomplish, this humble daughter of a minister can accomplish on your highness's behalf." Her gaze was like a blade, as if she wanted to cut me open and examine me inside and out. We all know that the poisoned wine at the palace banquet was her doing. She merely used the crown prince's confidant to present it. She wants Li Chenghan to go blind, to be left without heirs, to never sit on that dragon throne. What is Miss Shen talking about? She naturally wouldn't admit it. The pale fingertips lifted slightly, and the prescription slipped to the ground. "But have you uncovered any scheme of harming others and framing them? And how did you obtain this prescription?" A few questions, watertight and flawless. The reason she was so wary was that the matter had been handled cleanly and neatly, so there could be no flaw in his previous life. After Li Chenghan ascended the throne, he devoted himself to a thorough investigation and still Found absolutely no leads. How could I possibly have the ability to investigate? I could only lie. When I was young, by chance I once met someone who made poisons. At the palace banquet that day, I recognized the poisoned wine by its smell and color alone and memorized the recipe. In fact, I was eager to keep my distance from Li Chenghan and never went closer to look at that cup of wine, but the Princess Royal doesn't know these details. She was silent for a moment, then said, "You claim you can accomplish what I failed to do. What do you mean by that?" "I knew I'd passed the first hurdle," she answered truthfully. "This servant's daughter has already poisoned my own younger sister, Sheningxiu." After speaking, she lifted her eyes and watched her reaction. Sheningxiu uses the lip balm this servant's daughter gifted her every day. The poison has already seeped into her blood. If the crown prince grows close to her, it's only a matter of time before he is poisoned. The eldest princess arched her brows lightly. "Oh, you would really be so ruthless to your own younger sister." I was momentarily speechless, not knowing where to begin. I wanted to say she had schemed against me in every way, sowing discord and slandering me, cutting off my hope of seeing the light again, and in the end, even taking my life. Each and every one of these grudges makes me hate them to the bone, but all of this belongs to a previous life, and there's nothing more to be said. The eldest princess waved her hand. "Enough." She suddenly lifted my chin. "I'm just as ruthless as you." I looked at my reflection in her pupils and understood what she meant. She poisoned her own younger brother. We are the same kind. It's not that we're heartless. I tilted my head back and looked straight into her eyes. "It's the circumstances forcing our hand." She lifted the corners of her lips. "I never thought that in the modest ministry household, two sisters would actually fight to the death. It seems your legitimate younger sister doesn't treat you well. My imperial younger brother isn't sincere with you either. Far from it. When she first entered the palace, she claimed she was inexperienced and afraid of offending people, and she had Li Chenghan transfer the competent palace maids from my side to serve her, intending to use those people's lives to blackmail me. Although I wanted to suppress her, I ultimately had reservations and was too soft-hearted, which is what gave her the opportunity. She ordered palace maidservants to hide Li Chenghan's birth date and the witchcraft talisman under my pillow, falsely accusing me of cursing the Lord. I heard the commotion. Before she could bring people to search the palace, I felt for the talisman and swallowed it all to destroy the evidence. When that scheme failed, she framed me for secretly receiving bribes from the imperial physician Zhao and for defiling the inner palace. Li Chenghan was furious, fearing the disaster would fall on his family. Physician Zhao struck a pillar and died, choosing death to prove his resolve. He tried to harm me repeatedly but failed. In the end, he actually poisoned the long-life lock I had gifted to consort Yao, who bore 2 children, using me to slaughter the imperial princes. This time, Li Chenghan dealt with me personally. Consort Yao's natal family was powerful. Her elder brother guarded the border, and both court and country demanded an explanation, so I became the discarded pawn used to reassure the people. He seemed to have believed Sheningxiu's accusations and disbelieved my innocence. On second thought, it may well be that after weighing the pros and cons, he decided that abandoning me was the easiest choice. What's hateful is that I once gave my heart to such a person. The eldest princess lightly brushed my temple hair. "Since you have pledged yourself to me, you must let me see what abilities you still possess." I lowered my head. "I await your commands, Your Highness." She lowered her voice. "I want you to win over the Minister of War." Minister of War Qi Rui was part of the Crown Prince's faction, conservative and rigid. Persuading him to support a female sovereign would be extremely difficult. I had thought the Princess Royal would want my father's backing. My father is the Minister of Personnel, a man of integrity and somewhat more progressive. It would clearly be easier to gain his support. The Princess Royal saw through my thoughts. "I'm not in a hurry. About your father, the fate of you and your sisters is still uncertain. Your father is a variable. What I need now is certainty. I have to admit, the siblings are indeed clever. In my previous life my father often told me that even if I became the crown princess, he would not therefore cling to the Eastern Palace but would remain loyal to the emperor alone. Yet in the end, because his most beloved youngest daughter insisted on marrying her brother-in-law, he cast aside all his principles and joined the crown prince's faction. When Li Chenghan ascended the throne and kept his promise to bring Shenningshou into the palace as his wife, lavishing every affection on her, my father led the reformist faction to wholeheartedly support him and help him stabilize the court. My mother also always said that Shenningshou and I were like the palm and back of a hand, and they couldn't bear to favor either side. Though it appeared they offended no one, in truth they believed my eyes were blinded. And my position would not last, and secretly they were helping her. If my closest loved ones treated me this way, I was well aware that the Grand Princess was no different. Whether I or Shenningshou rose or fell was left to fate. They were content to sit back and watch the outcome. I pondered for a long time and ultimately agreed. Circumstances forced me to this. I had to take it one step at a time. Winning the support of Minister of War Qi Rui was indeed difficult, but not entirely impossible. This man has one fatal soft spot, his only son, Qi Yulin. Speaking of him, the capital has only one appraisal, a playboy who has squandered his talents, but the truth is not so. Qi Yulin will achieve great things in the years to come. He is the only son of Minister Qi, born with a handsome face. But he doesn't like reading or practicing martial arts. He spends his days locked away in the manor outside the city, fiddling with carpentry and tiling work, saying he is building a city, a miniature city. When we were young, once he invited me to the manor to see his masterpiece. And only then did I realize he wasn't joking. The whole room was filled with models of cities, markets, streets, waterways, bridges, little people, everything complete, all carved and assembled by his own hands, small enough to be held in the palm, yet so detailed that even the shop signs over the market gates had characters engraved on them. He pointed to one of the streets and showed me. "Does this look familiar?" I leaned in to look closely. The street was straight, the east and west markets laid out in orderly fashion, and even the shape of the pond matched exactly, not a fraction off. He said with a triumphant air, "This is in front of your house." Seeing my amazement, he grew even more pleased, pulling me along for half an hour as he explained how the city's canals were channeled and the levees repaired, speaking non-stop with animated gestures. At the time I thought, if he put this kind of energy into proper pursuits, what might he achieve? Later he let me in on the truth. It would be something that benefited thousands upon thousands. In his previous life, Minister Qi had forced him into the Ministry of Works. At first he was anonymous. People said he was only getting by on his father's influence. Then the Wei River burst its banks, turning 3 prefectures and 17 counties along its course into a marsh. Officials the court sent were helpless, passing responsibility around until this hot potato landed on his desk. He spent more than half a year on it and submitted a complete set of flood control strategies, from straightening river channels to reinforcing levees, and long-term plans for diverting and discharging floodwaters. I don't know how many days and nights he endured, calculating every bend and treacherous shoal along the Wei as clearly as could be. The Wei's calm thereafter was all his doing, waiting for his return. My fate had almost run out. He sent word through someone, asking if I needed him. I did not respond. I did not dare at that time. Nearly everyone around me had been replaced by people from Shenningshou, and I did not dare trust any word or object that came in, afraid it was a trap, until my mother came into the palace to see me. Seeing that I had grown so thin that only bones remained, she could not bear it in her heart. She avoided eyes and ears, whispered softly, "The Ji family's young man asked me to see if I could help you." Only then did I know that Qi Yulin really had loyalty and affection, and I became even more unwilling to drag him into this. Moreover, I no longer believed my mother this time. I found him at a villa outside the city. When I stepped inside, he set the model on the table and said, "A rare guest. I thought after you climbed up high, you wouldn't recognize this common man anymore." His tone was dripping with sarcasm. Our fathers served in the same court and our residences were close, so we often played together as children. Later, as I grew closer to the crown prince, I drifted away from him. I didn't waste words at this point and had the attendant present a brocade box. Inside is a wooden bridge, its body arched, the railings carved with floral patterns, and beneath the bridge finely etched ripples. I had someone search for half a month to find this. "He will definitely like it," Qi Yulin glanced at it, let out a snort of laughter, but still reached out to take it. He turned it over and over, looked at it several times, then raised his head to look at me. Go on, what do you want? With me, I forced down the urge to kick his backside and asked, would you be willing to enter official service a bit earlier? He froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. Shinawan, who sent you to play lobbyist? I didn't shrink back from his teasing and said bluntly, for myself, oh, you mean my entering office would be beneficial to you? He tilted his head, thought for a moment, then suddenly clapped his hands. I get it, you don't have a chance to marry the crown prince, so you set your sights on me. He spoke with utter certainty, and yet I felt nothing but bewilderment. Shinawan, let me be frank with you, I don't crave fame or office. I can't offer you the honors that set a person above all others. You've truly come to the wrong man. He actually thought I wanted to marry him, and resented him for not holding a single official post. That's not what I meant. The princess's fief has suffered floods for years. Next year's flood season may bring a great disaster. Rather than scrambling to respond then, it's better to take precautions now. I was thinking, if you go there to manage the waterways, you can put your skills to use and prevent harm to the people. Minister Qi had long been troubled by this son who refused to take office. If I can persuade Qi Yulin to take the right path, it will be a great help to him when I need his support in the future. I'll have one more bargaining chip. Qi Yulin listened and fell silent for a moment. Interesting, he leaned in toward me. The crown prince told me the same thing. He said he'd permit me to enter the Ministry of Works. Qi Yulin smiled without smiling. You two got into a fight, Shinawan. Is it because you can't win the crown prince's love that you threw in with the eldest princess? No, I denied it too quickly. Even I felt guilty about it, but since the words were out, I might as well keep going. The crown prince is not my destined one. He leaned in a little closer, a faint scent of pine coming from him, unexpectedly pleasant. The window in the room was half open, and the evening breeze poured in, making the wisps of hair on his forehead gently sway. He had an exceptionally beautiful pair of peach blossom eyes, usually half-lidded in a languid way, as if he had just woken up, but at this moment those eyes were clear and cool, making me a little uncomfortable. Then what kind of good match do you want? I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, with a bang, the door was pushed open. Li Cheng'an stood at the doorway, his face like frost. I'm quite curious myself, what kind of good spouse do you want? Someone single-minded and devoted. I looked up at Li Cheng'an. Care for me, trust me, and never join others in deceiving or humiliating me. As the words left my mouth, I felt a rush of relief. Qi Yulin let out a derisive phut behind me. That's it. His tone was full of disdain. Isn't this the most basic requirement for a husband? You're the legitimate daughter of the famed Minister Shen, and that's all you ask of your husband. I turned my head to look at him. Those peach blossom eyes were filled with, you really have no ambition. Yes, I smiled. That's it. Li Cheng'an's face looked even worse. His jaw clenched tight as if he'd crushed something hard between his teeth. Qi Yulin didn't care about his expression. Instead, he said, I can meet that request. There was a youthful earnestness in his eyes. Then, would I count as your true love? Ripples suddenly rose across the lake of my heart. For a moment, I didn't take his words as a joke, yet to be seen, I heard myself say. The corners of his lips slowly curved up, laughter hidden in his eyes and at the tips of his brows. All right, he stepped back half a pace and spun in place. Feel free to observe. Qi Yulin, Li Cheng'an spoke, his voice like tempered ice. I have come today on official business. I'll ask you once more, Gongbu, will you come or not? Qi Yulin lazily crossed his arms. Your Highness, I'm really not cut out for officialdom. Spending all day with Gongbu and that bunch of old men, how could that be as much fun as pursuing young ladies? His eyes sparkled lightly, and he grinned as he asked me, do you think I'm right? Preposterous. Li Cheng'an swept his sleeve. A gentleman who indulges in pleasure and does not strive for progress, what a disgrace. Qi Yulin neither took offense nor argued. He simply cupped his hands and apologized. Your Highness, your admonition is well deserved. Li Cheng'an turned his head away in anger and stormed off. I stayed behind to persuade him for quite a while, talking myself hoarse. Yet he still wore that careless, nonchalant look with no other choice. I had to head home first, but on the way, I ran into Lee Chenghan, who had been waiting for me as the carriage reached the ward gate. It suddenly came to a stop, the carriage curtain was lifted from the outside. Lee Chenghan stood in the dusk, 2 guards behind him, blocking the road. "Get down," he said. I didn't move. He simply got into the carriage. The carriage was already cramped. When he sat there, the whole compartment felt so suffocating it was hard to breathe. Who were those words meant for? He stared at me steadily, his gaze like a blade. I could only laugh. Whoever heard them, those words were meant for them. He sneered, "Sheningwan, in your past life you killed my children. I kill you to avenge them. Who are you putting on this pitiful, wronged act for?" He had switched to calling himself Jin. In an instant, the emperor from my past life, the one who could so easily take my life, seemed to have returned, seething with hatred and anger. I couldn't hold back anymore and raised my hand to slap him across the face. How many times have I said it? I didn't do it. My voice wouldn't stop trembling. I've cried, begged, and explained. But you never believed me. Lee Chenghan, have you ever investigated even once the false accusations forced onto me? You didn't. You were softened by pillow talk, long forgetting what I am like. We've known each other for over 10 years, accompanied each other in the Eastern Palace for 2 years with deep feeling, yet it couldn't compete with Sheningsho's tender favor, nor with the chill and ruthlessness after he ascended the throne. I wanted to say more, to pour out every grievance, to voice all my unwillingness, to berate him until it was a bloody mess, but seeing the handprint on his face, I suddenly calmed, swallowing the rest of my words back down. I don't want to die yet. If you say I'm pretending, then pretend for Qi Yulin to see. I want to film for his sympathy. His expression completely sank. "Sheningwan." He suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. "Have you fallen for Qi Yulin? None of your business. You are my empress. How could this have nothing to do with me?" I tore free of his grip and shrank into the corner of the carriage. "Stay away from me, now that there's no longer an eyesore of a blind man like me standing between you and her. Why not let me go?" He closed in on me. "Let you go? Absolutely impossible." He grew ruthless, gripping the back of my head and moving in for a kiss. I instinctively raised my hand and slapped again. Smack! The sound made both of us freeze. "Sheningwan, who gave you the guts to keep on?" "Your Highness the Princess." I squared my shoulders, regaining some courage. "I am the princess's person now. Before your Highness lays a hand on me, you'd better think twice. The poisonous wine from the last life could be delivered to you without God or ghost knowing. In this life it may not be impossible either." He was furious, pinching my chin as he said, "You fool, didn't you think that she already lost to me in the last life? In this life my hold is even firmer. Would I ever take her seriously? You think Imperial Sister is any good? Other than me, no one in this world can grant you a rank beneath only one and above all others." I almost burst out laughing. Never mind whether I even want that position. Even for the 3 years after becoming Empress, when was I ever below no one and above everyone? At best I'm a blind person with an empty title. With your tacit approval, anyone can trample on me. A flicker of hesitation showed in his eyes, his voice hoarse. "Impossible, Lee Chenghan, is it impossible, or are you unwilling to face this possibility? You're the real idiot. Have you never thought that in those 3 years, all my genuine feelings were trampled, every hope came to nothing, and even my resentment was exhausted? Given a second chance at life, how could I ever choose you again without hesitation? What a fool's dream." I closed my eyes, and at last the tears wouldn't stop streaming down when I opened them again after a long while. He was already gone. If I'd had some lingering dread before when facing Lee Chenghan, unsure whether he meant to kill me, after this, I understand completely. He no longer intends to kill me. Even though he keeps demanding my life, he held back from even slapping me twice. I don't care what he's thinking now. Since I've sensed this hint of pity, I'll make good use of it. I can't rely on father or mother, and the eldest princess only sees me as a raft. I can only rely on myself. The first priority is to take down Qi Yulin and prove my worth. Though he never acts properly all day long, he does listen to me to some extent. My looks are decent, and I've never lacked others' attention, but in the past, constrained by my status as the crown prince, No one dared get close now, however. It's a completely different story. The crown prince's auspicious day for taking a concubine was set, and the proposals for marrying me began to increase day by day, the lists of gifts piling up on the long table in the main hall. I was a fine candidate for the head wife. Every madam kept an eye on me, but overnight, the whole capital buzzed that I hadn't fallen for anyone else. Only day after day I chased after that rake Chi Yulin. My parents thought I'd been bewitched. The madams and misses whispered that Chi Yulin had slipped me a potion to cloud my mind. After hearing enough absurd talk, I actually felt like Chi Yulin had fed me a bewitching potion. Otherwise, why is it that the more I observe him, the more pleasing he seems? These past days, I've realized that Chi Yulin truly has great talent. The city models he builds, compared against the real places he's traveled to, each one is precise to an outrageous degree. He not only could build, he was also skilled in calculations. Once I asked him why the new city's canal between the east and west markets had to make 3 bends. He casually picked up a stick and spent the better part of an incense stick's time drawing in the sandpit, explaining clearly the terrain drop, the water's speed, and the rules of sediment deposition. At the end he said, "If you don't put in those 3 bends, the west market will be flooded once every 3 years." I was dumbfounded. He was also skilled at surveying terrain. Zhuangzi's storeroom was piled high with all kinds of drawings, mountain and river system maps he had painstakingly sketched by hand. For every place he had personally inspected, he marked on the map which river would swell in which season, which mountain had mineral deposits in which direction, and which stretch of road was most prone to landslides in what kind of weather. These things the Ministry of Works officials have been doing all their lives and may not do them as meticulously as he does. "Why don't you want to enter the officialdom?" I couldn't help asking him. He was planing a piece of wood, not even looking up, no interest. I stepped forward and held his hand. "Listen to me, the Wei River will flood badly next year, if flood control isn't stepped up. At the very least a dozen or so villages will be submerged." The carving knife in his hand paused. "Shinawan, I haven't been to the eldest princess's fief, nor have I seen the Wei River, so it's not my place to speak rashly, but I do know you. You haven't even left the capital, or are you claiming to be able to predict the future?" "I can." Perhaps my expression was too solemn, and he froze for a moment. "I'm a fairy descended to the mortal world, and I can foresee the weather. Next summer there will be 10 days of torrential rain in a row. The midstream section of the Wei River is heavily silted up, and the downstream will inevitably breach. If you don't believe me, go see for yourself and calculate it again." He did not treat my words as a joke. He bent down, took out a map, spread it on the ground, and calculated for a whole hour. When he finished, he sat in the middle of the map, looked up at me and said, "Fairy, you're right, but will there really be 10 days of heavy rain? Whether it rains or not, it's always best to take precautions." I appealed to emotion and reason, describing in full the tragic scene of the Wei River breaching in our previous lives. I also conveyed the eldest princess's intention. Even if the court refuses to allocate funds, the eldest princess can afford it. "If no one in the Ministry of Works is willing to go, I'll go with you to conduct the survey." When I said those words, I wasn't thinking only of Minister Chi's favor, nor merely of currying favor with the eldest princess. I was thinking of the common folk who were swept away by the flood in my previous life, having lived again. If I can save them with Chi Yulin's help, then this second chance won't have been in vain. "I'll go." Chi Yulin cut me off mid-prattle, rubbing his ear. "Stop nagging. Is it not all right if I go?" Mrs. Chi, hearing of this, was overjoyed and ordered many generous gifts to be sent to the Shen residence. She also somehow heard that I would only marry his son. So today she invited my mother to tea, and tomorrow she invited her to the opera. Between the lines she's trying to pin down the marriage. Mother was completely taken in by her coaxing. She came back to discuss it with me. "I think Mrs. Chi is sincere. She can't speak highly enough of you." The father, however, was very hesitant. As Minister of Personnel, he had always prided himself on being a member of the Qingliu, refusing to form factions or take sides. And that was how he had remained steady in court for so many years. Now his younger daughter was tied to the crown prince, and his elder daughter to the Minister of War from the Crown Prince's faction. This Qingliu of his, it seemed, could only flow toward the Eastern Palace. He mentioned it to me in passing. Wanna, that child from the Qi family, take a closer look. There's no rush. I didn't refute him, just smiled. I'm not in a hurry. I still want to stay in the manor and watch the show. Ningxiu's eyesight deteriorated far faster than I expected. Before the auspicious day even arrived, her vision had already grown blurry. Several groups from the Imperial Medical Bureau came and examined her over and over, only to say it was wind heat attacking upward, damaging the optic system. Mother was frantic, and father's brow stayed knotted, even more worried about me than before. Ningxiu hid in her room crying all day, and the more she cried, the more her eyes hurt. When she was done crying, she started throwing things. After she was done throwing things, she grabbed a maid and asked, "Does His Highness the Crown Prince know? Has His Highness come to see me?" The Crown Prince did not come to see her. Instead, he came to find me at the first opportunity. 9 That evening, I returned from Qi Yulin's manor, still carrying the scent of pine on me, pushing the door open and stepping inside. Before I could even change clothes, the courtyard gate was kicked open. Li Chenghan was seething with fury. "What did you do to her?" I set down the cloak in my hand and looked at him calmly. "Your Highness, who are you referring to?" "Drop the act." He approached step by step. Ashio's eyes. "Are they? It wasn't you." I did not step back. "Has Your Highness investigated it?" I asked. He stopped. "Or," I tilted my head slightly, "are you going to ignore everything again and come to accuse me?" His Adam's apple bobbed. "I want the truth from you. Did you do it or not? Or was it the Princess Royal? Do you know anything about it?" I'd have to be crazy to tell the truth when I didn't speak. He actually tried to awaken my conscience. "I know. The years spent together in the Eastern Palace were the most beautiful time for you and me. I should not have shattered that beauty. I should not have hurried to bring her into the household, stirring your jealousy and sowing discord. But Axiu is innocent. She is your own younger sister. Even if someone harmed you in a past life, it could never have been her. She was merely spoiled into arrogance. But her heart isn't wicked. She would never harm her own sister." I raised my hand. I truly couldn't bear his bowing to me on behalf of Ningxiu. In my mind I always treated the Crown Prince who loved me in my youth and the Emperor who later became cold and ruthless as two different men. Only by deceiving myself in this way could I endure the torment of the years in the inner palace. But now he is still the boy I'm most enamored with, yet he unabashedly favors someone else, even though I've long known it in my heart. In the end the tears still well up, dampening my eyes. I let out a bitter laugh. "Your Highness misunderstands. The eldest princess is your own sister. How could she bear to harm you? There must be someone else. As for me and Ningxiu, Your Highness, why do you think I would take revenge on her because of my death in a past life? When did I ever say that I was killed by her in my previous life? I've always said I was wronged and don't know who the real culprit is. Could it be? Your Highness knows perfectly well in your heart. Did you come to question me this time because you think I'm easy to bully? If you want to pin her eyes on me, then Your Highness should bring the evidence. I'll plead guilty and accept punishment without a word. If you have no evidence, Your Highness, please leave." Li Chenghan stared at me for a long time without speaking. Owen, it was as if he had just met me. He examined me carefully, inch by inch. "But I am no longer the Shiningwan from my past life whose heart would race at a single glance from him. You'll regret this," he said. "The thing I regret most, I already did in my previous life." 10 Li Chenghan's favoritism toward Ningxiu has never changed. In either past life or present, her eye ailment did not affect the wedding date. On the wedding day, the Eastern Palace was festooned with lanterns and decorations, no different from welcoming a principal consort. Father had to preside over the rites on behalf of the imperial family. Mother had to accompany her to dress and adorn herself. And I, as the elder sister, was the one with leisure instead, sitting quietly among the women's seats. I watched them walk hand in hand down the long steps. He lowered his head to speak to her, and even from far away you could see the smile at the corner of his mouth. During the wedding ceremony, fearing she might veer off course, he personally reached out to straighten her. This is a kind of attentiveness I had never experienced. All the guests praised the Crown Prince for his deep affection and steadfast devotion. I picked up the teacup and took a sip. The tea was good, but it lacked the flavor of the wild tea from Chiyulin Manor. Nothing interesting. I rose from my seat and happened to run into my mother. She felt she owed me, and softly asked, "Wana, aren't you waiting for the banquet to end?" "I'm not waiting," I said. "Chiyulin is waiting for me at the city gate. We're going to survey the middle reaches of the Wei River. This trip will take 3 months, so many hardships in between every day. Chiyulin gets up before dawn and walks along the river, and only when the sun sets does he stop to rest. He measures section by section with a ruler, notes down every detail stroke by stroke with a pen. He's worn out several pairs of shoes, and has grown noticeably thinner. I stay by his side. When I can't walk anymore, I sit on the field ridge and wait for him. There's not a trace of a noble lady's grace left in me, only a small person struggling to survive in the cracks of a chaotic world. Mother wrote to say that the Crown Prince has been dropping by the Shun residence every few days, probing and asking roundabout questions about my whereabouts. Only when he learned that I had set a wedding date with Chiyulin did he stop asking. At the end of the letter, Mother wrote a passage. "Waina, your mother knows you are a clever child. There are things she ought not to say too much. But I still want to advise you regarding the Crown Prince. Do not keep entertaining those thoughts. It is not appropriate for 2 sisters to serve the same husband. You and Ingxio are both headstrong. If the sisters grow apart, it will break your mother's heart." I folded the letter and did not reply. In my previous life, did she ever give Ingxio such advice? I have no way of knowing, but this time, I gave her what she wanted. I will not share a husband with Ingxio. I only want her life. I can't let go of the hatred in my heart. I am editing the book for the Dowager Princess, and will compile the situation of the investigation in March in detail. After reading it, the Dowager Princess was greatly moved. She replied that she did not expect I would go to such lengths to help her win over the Minister of War, even bowing myself into the fray and marrying off his son. She bestowed 3 carts of precious treasures. I had a trusted servant buy a small 2-compound house and locked all those treasures inside. This was my last resort, for when everything else failed, Chiyulin was not given to romantic attachments. He was absorbed in blueprints and timber, to the point of neglecting meals. Several times I brought a bowl over and he didn't lift his head, so I had to feed him spoonful by spoonful. As he chewed, he would suddenly stop, sketch a few hurried lines on the paper, then resume chewing. Finally, on a morning after an all-nighter, he sealed a volume of flood control strategies and had it sent to the palace. 4 full years earlier than in my previous life, the old emperor opened that volume in court and, before all the officials, said "excellent" 3 times in a row, his face radiant. Chiyulin leapt from being an ordinary commoner to becoming a 6th-rank officer in the Ministry of Works. The imperial decree praised him for being knowledgeable in hydraulics and exceptionally talented, rewarded him with gold, silver, and silk, and granted him a plaque inscribed "benefiting the people with water management." When the news reached the Qi household, everyone rejoiced. Madame Qi even invited me to a banquet at their home, taking my hand with tears in her eyes. "Ingwan, you are our family's lucky star," Chiyulin corrected her. "She's an immortal." Because that summer it truly rained storms for 10 straight days. Just as I had predicted, fortunately I had prepared in advance. The Wei River was calm and the people were unharmed. From then on the Qi household called me like this. And Chiyulin set the example. "Fairy, grind some ink for me. Fairy, take a look at this passage, does it compute? Fairy, are you hungry? I had the kitchen stew some soup for you. Fairy, do I have to stay at the Ministry of Works? Can't I go home and make little figures with you?" I tugged at his ear. "If you dare lose your official position, I will break the engagement immediately." He shook his head and sighed. With such a pure character, not tainted by commonness, self-purified, not coveting fame, yet to marry a wife who is greedy for power, heaven's will, truly heaven's will. Heaven teases people. I loosened my grip. "You can choose not to marry," he then handed me the other ear in my palm. "Just kidding." During the playful moment, a servant came to report, "The Crown Prince has arrived." Li Chenghan first went to the Shen mansion to find me, and upon learning I was at the Qi mansion, he came to visit. He wanted to dismiss Chi Yulin and speak with me alone. But I did not agree. I, as a married woman now, should not be alone with a man other than my husband. Your Highness, please speak directly if you have something to say. For a moment he looked somber, but anxious about Shen Ningxiao's illness. He could not dwell on it. Owen, do you truly not cherish your younger sister? Arxiu now seems to have changed. Li Chenghen couldn't bring himself to say it, but I knew clearly what Shen Ningxiao had done from the reports of the maid who served her. Blind Shen Ningxiao's moods were unpredictable. All her resentment fell on the maids. Either she would throw hot soup in their faces, or she would stab their arms with scissors. She said that when she heard others cry out in pain, her own eyes felt less sore. Li Chenghen felt sorry for her, but he didn't want innocent people continually caught up in it, especially since it would tarnish Shen Ningxiao's reputation and make her unsuitable to become empress. His voice was dry. I only understood recently that when a person suffers, their temperament can change. You back then, mindful of Chi Yulin being present, he didn't finish the sentence. I, however, walked up to him without hesitation and raised my hand to slap him. First time was awkward, second time more practiced, and by the third time it had become natural. Startled, Chi Yulin reflexively covered her cheek. I lowered my hand, my palm burned. Li Chenghan, I have never changed. Not everyone who suffers becomes cruel and vicious, offloading all their pain onto others. He slowly lifted his head. If it would ease your anger, I will let you beat me. But can you tell me, does she still have a chance? I drew a deep breath and put on an anguished, reproachful expression. You once sought a doctor with the surname Yu for me. In truth, he did prepare an antidote. Li Chenghan's eyes flickered, as if recalling, I only learned this recently. The princess has come to trust me greatly and took me to see the doctor who made poisons. From his voice I recognized him as the man who, in my previous life, treated me for a long time and said to me countless times, Madam, please be at ease. But the antidote he prepared for me had been swapped by a palace attendant Shen Ningxiao had placed by my side. The moment I took it, I tasted a candied fruit with a dusty flavor, obviously useless. Because of that, Li Chenghen called him an incompetent physician and had him expelled from the capital. The Princess Royal told me, you only need to give a little guidance to make the prince come to him of his own accord. Every word I now say to Li Chengjiao is in accordance with the Princess Royal's orders. Dr. Yu opened an apothecary in the south of the city. Go find him. He can save Shen Ningxiao. Li Chenghen said thanks, and when he reached the door he suddenly stopped. Owen, he said with his back to me, you wouldn't lie to me, would you? With your highness so suspicious, I couldn't help thinking that you already know all the things Shen Ningxiao did to me in the past. He stood at the door for a long time again before finally leaving. Only when the footsteps faded outside the courtyard did Chi Yulin come to his senses. He asked me, Shinawan, why can't I understand what you people are saying? I kept my face expressionless and my heart steady. That's how people in official circles speak, roundabout and evasive. There are tricks to it. You'll have to ask me more about them. He immediately replied, but you even dared hit the crown prince, won't you hit me in the future? I smiled. That depends on how you behave. He stepped forward, cupped my face, and his fingertip gently brushed my eyes. What hardships did you suffer before? Tell me. My throat tightened, my voice carrying an almost imperceptible catch. Better not to mention it. He didn't press further, only placing a light kiss on my eyelids. Such beautiful eyes must be well cared for, though I don't know why your sister became blind, nor how she once mistreated you. I'm certain she deserved what befell her. I suppose your father and mother favored her. Never mind, I'll dote on you from now on. The entire Qi household will dote on you. I buried my head in his chest, clutching his waist tightly, unable to hold back sobs. There, he stroked my head repeatedly, his voice as gentle as a feather. If you hit others, you can't hit me. I wiped my tears into a smile. Suddenly I felt that some things in this world are harder to find than an antidote, like trust, like sincerity, like someone willing to be biased in your favor. Half a month before the 12th great wedding, Minister Qi of the Military Affairs sent someone to summon me to the study. I had thought he would instruct me on the Qi household rules, the relatives of the clan, or the matters of running the household in the future. But after I entered the study and the door was closed, this usually stern minister of war actually poured me a cup of tea first. Old man only asks you one question: did you marry my son for the grand princess, or do you truly care for him? I held the teacup and did not answer immediately. From outside the courtyard came the sounds of hammering and knocking. The servants setting up the wedding canopy. Chi Yulin's voice mixed in, directing something among them. I married him for both, I said frankly. Chi Shong raised his eyebrows. If I may speak without fear of being laughed at, I'm not very old, but I've seen too much hypocrisy. Only Chi Yulin treated me well. He was the most sincere and expected nothing from me. Chi Shongshu was silent for a moment, then asked, you just said both, what is the other one? As Minister of War, Darren, your strategies far surpass mine. I earnestly beg you to set aside gender bias and consider carefully, between the crown prince and the princess, who succeeding the throne would be more beneficial to the people. Chi Shongshu's expression shifted slightly. I took the chance to continue. In the 17th year of Xianda, the crown prince was ordered to provide disaster relief. The court allocated 300,000 dan of grain. He went through the disaster areas, but distributed less than 100,000 dan. Where did the remaining 200,000 dan go? At that time, you were in the army. One of the staff officers under your command was from a disaster-stricken hometown. He saw his parents starve to death, yet discovered that the crown prince's confidants were reselling grain from the public granaries at high prices. Later that staff officer tried to file a complaint to the court, but before he even left the camp, his legs were broken. Darren, did you investigate this matter and trace it to the Eastern Palace? And then, there was no then, because some things cannot be probed too deeply. That is 1, 2, in the 19th year of Xianda, the crown prince was ordered to train troops in the capital region. He was impatient for success and disregarded the soldiers' lives, forcing them to train shirtless in the bitter cold, causing over 300 men to freeze to death or be injured. Yet the final verdict was merely accidental casualties during training. Darren, you have commanded troops. Can such things really be hidden from you? He did not interrupt me. His gaze, however, held more appraisal. You asked if I support the princess. Yes, and no. Though a woman, the princess is not inferior to the crown prince. She knows how to appoint the right people, cares for the common folk, and in her fief none steal from the roads. The crown prince, on the other hand, is blind to the private misconduct of his confidants. Would you be at ease in trusting the lives and fortunes of the Qi family to such a person? Qi Shongshu's brow knit. Do you have evidence for these claims? The Grand Princess has it. I stood up and bowed to Minister Qi. Please take your time to consider it, sir. The Grand Princess awaits good news. Before leaving, he called after me, don't let my son down. Earlier I opposed him marrying you. He insisted and refused to back down, preferring to be punished by the family rules. The wounds on his body still haven't fully healed. Seeing my stunned expression, he froze. You had no idea. I saluted. Again, left the study, and gently closed the door in the corridor. Chi Yulin was leaning against a pillar, finished talking. Were you eavesdropping? Do I need to eavesdrop? You really didn't eavesdrop. No, he spun me around, checking carefully that I was unharmed. My father didn't trouble you, did he? I played along and said to him, your father only admires me. Don't be ridiculous, he scoffed, then teased. But I've heard fathers-in-law are usually nicer to their daughters-in-law. Still, he shouldn't like you too much, right? Are you trying to lose your ears? We bantered as we ran back to his room. Seeing no one around, I grabbed his collar and tried to pull him down. No, no, he put his hands over his chest and backed away repeatedly. It wouldn't be proper, it wouldn't be proper. Can you stop being so impatient? I kicked his butt and said angrily, what are you thinking? I heard you suffered family discipline when you married me. Let me see where you're bruised. He froze for a moment, then 2 red patches flared on his cheeks as he lowered his voice. Right where you just kicked. This just makes matters worse. Still want to look? My eyes suddenly prickled. I asked softly, why didn't you tell me? Tell you what for? He reached up and flicked my forehead, his tone a little coaxing. Don't cry. Mortals who marry a fairy should expect some trials. Otherwise I'd feel uneasy myself. I glared at him. He grinned and changed the subject. All right. I'll escort you back to the Shun residence. Honestly, you haven't even married me yet and you already revolve around me all day. There was not a trace of displeasure on his face when he said this, only pride. People in the capital say I'm skilled at charming a wife. I don't even bother responding to them. Shut up. Oh. 2 days before the 13th grand wedding, word came from the Eastern Palace. The Crown Prince's concubine Sheningxiu had died. My mother fainted on the spot. My father's face went ashen, and he nearly lost his breath. I stopped the messenger and clarified the details after treatment by Dr. Yu. Her eyes showed no improvement, but her temperament grew increasingly violent, and her torments of those around her became more malicious. The palace maids in the Eastern Palace were all of chaste backgrounds, some the daughters of officials, each hoping to win the Crown Prince's favor. None could endure her abuse. 2 maids, driven past endurance, took advantage of her midday nap. One held her hands and feet while the other thrust scissors into her heart. By the time Li Chenghan arrived, she was barely breathing and left only one sentence: that the Crown Prince should execute every maid who had served her, leaving none alive. This was a scandal of the Eastern Palace that ought to have been buried, yet for some reason it spread across the capital overnight. Everyone knew the Crown Prince had blooded the Eastern Palace on behalf of his concubine, sparing not even the imperial physicians. Another piece of news circulated: the Crown Prince had been poisoned, the poison of the same strain as that which afflicted Sheningxiu. The imperial doctors diagnosed that the Crown Prince had no heirs. Now, impeachment petitions against the Crown Prince piled upon the imperial desk, and old charges of his tolerating cronies who embezzled disaster relief grain and brutalized soldiers during drills were revealed one by one. The old emperor sat on the dragon throne, his complexion ashen. After the court adjourned, Minister Qi did not return directly to his residence but went to the Princess Chang's mansion. By now, everything had turned out as I had hoped, yet my father insisted I break the engagement. He said, "The Crown Prince is in a low point. Only you can ease the gloom in his heart. You might as well go serve him now." The Princess Chang told me that since Sheningxiu entered the Eastern Palace, my father had secretly attached himself to the Crown Prince. Now, having ridden the tiger, he could not get off and had no way back. I put on a mock-offended look and retorted, "Father, do you know people are saying the Crown Prince cannot produce heirs? His position as successor may not be secure." My father slammed his palm on the table. "Nonsense." He then straightened, slowed his voice, and continued to urge me, "Even if true, the palace is full of skilled physicians. Why worry about treating His Highness?" My mother also urged, "Wanna, your sister's bones are barely cold. You shouldn't be arranging a wedding now. Why not listen to your father?" A chill spread through my heart. Why had I not seen their faces clearly before? Father and mother, perhaps you do not yet understand the present situation. The Crown Prince's deposition and the Princess Chang's accession are already decided. The fortunes of my family and the Qi household rise and fall together, if the Shun household wants to survive. It depends on how I curry favor with the Princess Chang. Only then did my father suddenly realize the closeness between me and the Princess Chang, why since returning from the imperial banquet I had been visiting her mansion daily, and why ties with the Qi household had grown so close. It turned out I had involved myself so deeply. My mother belatedly grasped it too, struck my face with a slap, and scolded harshly, "You, for your own sake, have turned against your own sister and her husband, dragging our Shun household into ruin. I carried you for 10 months and raised you, and you become such a curse." I spat a mouthful of blood, lifted my head and stared at her. "What is wrong with finding a way out for myself? You hurried to pick sides and chose the wrong camp, then try to throw the blame onto me." My father raised his hand to strike me. I dodged and said coldly, "From now on, Father, do your duty and be content to be a loyal minister." Having said that, I turned decisively and looked at them one last time. 14. The wedding date with Qi Yulin remained unchanged. Not a day moved. My father and mother did not attend. The Qi household, however, preserved full face for me, red silk laid from the main hall all the way to the alley mouth. Qi Yulin rode a bay horse to fetch the bride. Alighting, he nearly tripped on his robe's hem. provoking laughter from the gathered townspeople. Once steady, he reached out his hand toward me, his voice amused. "Fair maiden, take your seat in the sedan." With the red veil over my face I could not see him, but I could hear him. Laughing over the firecrackers, the sedan was lifted, and behind me the vermilion gates of the Shun residence closed heavily. I did not look back. On the night of the wedding, the palace bell of mourning at the Eastern Palace suddenly tolled. Crown Prince Li Chenghan slit his own throat before the shrine of his concubine, Qi Yulin, and I, however, drank the ceremonial nuptial wine as if nothing had happened, our hearts united, and made love all through the night. The princess had been involved. With me, should I have spared Li Chenghan's life at that time? I retorted. If he were to gain power today, how would he treat your highness? I think she understood that clearly. In the previous life, after Li Chenghan ascended the throne, he sent a length of white silk to the princess's residence. Publicly they only said the eldest princess had taken her own life, and he did not even grant her a posthumous title. He said that a woman's body could never dare contend with him for the world. More than that, he insisted on having his way. It was a matter of course. The old emperor already had little time left, and with the crown prince dead his health declined even faster. 3 months later, the edict was issued. Succession passed to the emperor's eldest daughter. On the day the empress ascended the throne, the capital saw the first snowfall of the winter. I stood under the corridor of the Qi residence, watching the snow fall across the sky. Last life. At this time I could only sketch the fall of snow from memory, while palace women deliberately told me things to hear, what new garments Shiningsho had acquired, what rewards she had received. Then I thought my life would probably be like that forever. Now I see that changing who sits on the dragon throne is not so difficult after all. After the empress took the throne, her first task was to straighten the court. Minister Qi was promoted to the Grand Secretariat. Qi Yulin was raised to Deputy Minister of Works, and I too received an imperial commission. Father, however, was demoted 3 grades and sent to a sinecure in Lingnan. On the day he left the capital, he entrusted someone to bring a letter to me, saying the family wanted to see me once more. I did not go. I no longer wanted to give myself more grief. I already had a family I had chosen. Another year passed in the blink of an eye. Year after year the flowers look the same, but people change with each passing year. Sometimes I remember that in my previous life I had hoped with all my heart that Li Chenghan would uncover the truth, that he would regret it, see my virtues again, and recognize Shiningsho as the truly malicious one. Now I finally understand that before favoritism, the truth amounts to nothing. He loved Shiningsho and was willing to become blind for her. Her humiliations of me, in his eyes, were mere tantrums, jealousy, or play. Even if the truth were exposed, it would only cause a momentary pang of guilt and nothing more. Li Chenghan treated me this way, and my parents did too. Most of the world's affections are like this, lamentable and worthy of song. Fortunately, in this life there is one less emperor opening his harem wide and provoking women to vie for favor. The daughters of the Yarrow family need not enter the palace as concubines, need not bear children for someone they do not love. I still remember the night she wept as if her heart were torn apart. I too tossed and turned and could not sleep, while only Shiningsho in the palace kept calling for water without end. Truly pitiable and lamentable. This life the empress is wise. I too can live out my days in peace. Qi met Lin Songgong when he returned, brushed the fallen snow from his body, stepped inside and first took the hand warmer to warm his hands. Only when his palms grew hot did he come to touch me. Fairy, he said, the spring flood of the Wei River is coming. I have to go. How long are you going for? A month or 2. Oh, he kissed my forehead. Can you come with me? Of course I'll go with you. Favoritism, after all, is precious because it's mutual.